Good evening. I'm David Atkins, and this is Eye on the Issues. With the nation's eyes focused on healthcare and the war in Afghanistan, other important issues that deserve attention are often pushed aside. This evening, we'll focus on one of those issues, women's rights and gender equality. To help cover this topic, we're honored to speak with two distinguished guests, both of whom are household names and longtime fierce advocates for equal rights, Lilly Ledbetter and Gloria Allred. Our first guest this evening, Lilly Ledbetter, was employed by Goodyear Tire and Rubber for 19 years before she discovered that she was paid far less for the same work as her male peers. She filed a lawsuit against Goodyear, and after a long legal battle, her case was ultimately decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. She lost in a 5-4 decision. The Supreme Court stated that she had taken too long to file a complaint. This decision, which made it easier for employers to get away with wage discrimination practices, would become a hotly contested issue by both Democrats and Republicans. Lilly went on to testify before Congress and even campaigned with Barack Obama for change. She was highly instrumental in creating a new law that significantly changed the time limit on an employee suing an employer. In the past, employees had to sue within 180 days of their first paycheck. Thanks to Lilly Ledbetter and the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009, employees have now up to 180 days from receiving their last paycheck to sue unfair employers. Now 70 and recently widowed, Lilly lives in Jacksonville, Alabama on a small pension and, like many Americans, worries about losing her home. She will never see restitution from Goodyear, but she has seen the day when her own daughter and grandchildren can finally demand fair pay. Ms. Ledbetter, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, David, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I do like sharing my story.
Well, it's a pleasure for us as well. I guess the first question that I have is, it must have taken incredible determination and commitment to follow through with the lawsuit against Goodyear when so many other people simply just accepted their fate. Where did you find that inner courage?
Well, the first of the thing that I thought about, that this is not right. And I had to stand up for myself. Even though I was near retirement age, I just had to stand up and tell my employer this is not right. Because it not only affected me, it affected my family, and it affected my retirement too. Because everything that I earned today was based and calculated on what I earned back then.
Right. So at first you won your case.
I did.
And then you went to the Supreme Court, and the conservative majority on the court ruled 5-4 against you. How did you deal with that disappointment?
I first thought about just letting it go, but there again, it was not right. In fact, Justice Ginsburg, with her dissent, gave me the strength and the courage to stand up for not only for what I had been through, but for the women and girls out there today and the future. Because this not only affected me and my family, it affects so many households in America today, still.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. How did that come about? What was the process, and what did it end up doing?
Well, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, the challenge that Justice Ginsburg gave when she read her dissent in the Supreme Court, when the verdict was read, she said that these fellows did not get it. Those 5 justices, they don't understand what it's like in the real world. She hit the nail on the head, because people do not stand around water coolers at work discussing their pay. And it's very important that the law be changed. And she challenged Congress to do that, and they have the power. And so they began work on it immediately. And I went to Congress, I went to the House, I testified twice in the House, twice in the Senate.
And how did the law receive a strong majority in passage?
In the 110th Congress, it passed the House. In the 110th Senate, it failed, came up short by 3 votes.
So what specific protections does it offer women?
It offers them the right, because what those 5 justices said in the ruling on my case indicated that and said that a person would have to file their charge within 180 days of that being established. Well, oftentimes, and like in my case, I had no idea that I was being paid less. And there's no way to prove it. And if you don't know, you can't file a charge. You have to know.
Right.
And today, once a person like myself finds out, they have 180 days from that last check that they received to file their charge. And
so even after their employment has been terminated?
True.
Right.
True. If that last check falls within that 180-day period, they can still file the charge.
And how would you discover that you were being paid less? What should one do to research this, to make this determination?
Well, it's very difficult when you work for a corporation like I did, which said if you discuss your pay, you will not work here. So we never discussed our pay ever in the plant. And you didn't know. And
is that legal to do that? To say you can't discuss your pay?
Well, evidently there's a lot of employers who do it. I don't know about being legal, but a lot of them do it.
Right. So what advice would you have for women and other discriminated minorities who may be discovering that they're getting paid less?
They need to follow through. They need to go to the Equal Employment Opportunity Center and file a charge. And then if they're issued the right to sue, then they can get an attorney and go forward. But it's very difficult, and we have some more laws coming up. The Paycheck Fairness will afford people protection from retaliation. It will also give them the right to ask about their pay, their superior, their employer.
They don't have that right now?
Well, they can be retaliated against. And oftentimes it does. When I tried that, I tried asking, and I was sort of just scoffed at. People turned me off and said that information wasn't available.
Now, that was one of the key issues in your case. You were retaliated against fairly heavily. Can you talk a little bit about what Goodyear did to you?
Yes, so I had been moved to a new job, and I could not get the correct and the information that I needed, the instructions when I went in to do my shift. I could not get the instructions about the schedule and the procedures and for the evening, and I was always on the night shift. And it made it impossible to do that job, and everybody avoided me because they knew that it wasn't healthy career-wise for them to keep their jobs if they talked to me or they were seen speaking to me, and they would not help me.
Right. And they gave you employment working heavy labor,
yes,
correct?
They did.
Heavy physical labor when that was not your job before, right?
That's correct. I was an area manager managing a production in area in production.
Right.
And then they moved me to being an engineer technologist, which is the old quality control.
Right.
Had me inspecting Hummer tires, which were heavy, extremely heavy, no hoist, unlighted, well-lit work area, which I could see that, you know, eventually I would get caught making a mistake.
Right. And you're saying that that sort of retaliatory behavior is legal right now, or at least commonplace?
Well, I couldn't do anything about it.
Right. So talk to me more about this new legislation, and when do you think it will come onto the table to be voted for?
The legislation that passed the last Congress and the House, it did not pass the Senate. They were planning to work on it in the spring when the banks sort of got in trouble and distracted from it.
You're talking about the Paycheck Fairness Act, right? So we're not talking about the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, which simply means that you can, within 180 days of your last paycheck now, file for paycheck discrimination.
Correct.
So this is the Paycheck Fairness Act, which allows someone not to be retaliated against for looking into the issue.
That's right. In fact, I've heard the Paycheck Fairness bill described as the hammer for the nail that the Ledbetter bill is.
Right.
In other words, they really go together. And that would have been a great asset for me to not been retaliated against when I file my charge.